Now this entire trip, I very easily could have just pointed the video camera at something and said, this is where this really happened. Right, Ethan? Would have been a lot easier than doing what we just did. But these are the real places where this stuff happened. And you can pause your video right now and thank Mr. Kuski heartily for almost dying on your behalf to get you this video. Because I am 52 years old and my kid is laughing at me. But if you look, if you kind of show the valley, don't, it gets really bad. It doesn't look very good if you zoom in too much, Ethan, but if you guys see the Indian path that comes down, this is the Lewis and Clark Trail as well, because they follow the well-worn Indian path, down from the mountain ridge and down into this valley below, and then we just climbed out of this valley. On June 13th, Lewis made his way down here for 9 miles, that's what he said, down into this valley, and down here at the bottom of this valley, he came across a few Shoshone. He got very close to them and he yelled out, "Tababone," which again, and he said it loudly and repeatedly, which again means stranger, right? And they took off and ran, right? So that wasn't successful. He then starts climbing up out of this valley here, and you can turn and go this way, and he comes to a point, which is we're standing on right now, and this valley below, as soon as he reaches this point, 30 yards away from him, it could have been there, it could have been over here, 30 yards away from him is a small group of Shoshone, 3 women. It's an old woman, a 12-year-old, and a teenager. The teenager runs away. The old woman and the child stay there. Lewis lays down his weapons, he lays everything down. He puts a blanket down. And the old woman ducked down on the ground like she was, ready to die. All these people knew that weren't them was Blackfeet that would kill them. And he goes over and he grabs her and he raises her up and he starts painting her face with vermilion. And he starts giving her presents. He gives her mirrors. He gives her beads. He starts giving her these presents. And he tries to explain to her who they were, and says that he wants to meet their chiefs and their warriors, that he and his party wish to do that. He's talking through Druyer. Druyer, you would use sign language. He was very good at using sign language to try to communicate with the tribes, and he was successful at doing that with a whole variety of tribes. So the woman understood, and she was calmed down, after this, after receiving the gifts. And they start heading off, and you can see the direction that this old Indian road, and now also there's Lewis and Clark markers all along the road here. They start heading off, in Lewis's words in his journals, for 2 miles. Well, that ridge over there is farther than 2 miles. And so at some point here, roaring over the ridge come a huge band of Shoshone warriors and come racing up to them. Lewis puts down his rifle and they started meeting. It turned out that the chief's name was Kameoate. Kameoate and his huge number of warriors sit down. Lewis takes out a pipe. He starts giving them gifts. He takes out, the guy walks up to him and he puts his right arm over Lewis's left shoulder, puts their cheeks together and starts rubbing their cheeks together very affectionately. And Lewis later described it. He said, and then once all the men started doing this to Lewis's men, he said, they did this until I was very tired of the national hug, he calls it. And so very friendly. This could not have gone better for Lewis. And maybe the fact that they had the old woman with them allowed this to happen, and they just didn't mistake him for Blackfeet and shoot him from a distance. They had their bows and arrows. They had 3 guns as well. And so Lewis indicates that we want to go to your main camp and explain what it is that we're doing out here. We come in peace, but we need to explain the reason that we're out here. And Kameoate explains this to his men, and they all went off in that direction towards their main camp.